Welcome to Legal AF. I'm Ben Meiselas, joined by the one and only Michael Popok, and we've got breaking news. Judge Aileen Cannon has just set a trial date in connection with Special Counsel Jack Smith's criminal case against Donald Trump and his co-defendant Waltine Nauta for willful retention of national defense information, obstruction of justice, conspiracy, and making false statements. You will recall, pursuant to the Speedy Trial Act, an initial placeholder date for the trial was set in August of 2023. Special Counsel Jack Smith then made a request for a trial date in December of 2023, anticipating that Donald Trump would likely request some trial date after the November 2024 election. That is precisely what Donald Trump requested in his continuance motion. Not only did Donald Trump request some date after November 2024, but Donald Trump and his co-defendant Waltine Nauta said, Judge Aileen Cannon, don't even set a trial date. Maybe we can talk about trial sometime after the November 2024 election. There was a status conference held earlier this week, originally intended as what's called a CIPA status conference, Classified Information Procedure Act status conference. But Judge Aileen Cannon told the parties, be ready to discuss your dueling continuance motions. This hearing earlier this week lasted about 2 hours. Judge Aileen Cannon said she would make a written order about the trial date, and that she did. Michael Popok, what did she rule, and why did she rule that way?
Yeah, she set a trial date in May 20th of 2024, which frankly is about what we thought she would do. At least I did. And I think you think it's probably a good date too. It's a Solomonic decision, and I'll back into how she got there. Meaning, she kind of split the difference between what the government wanted and what the Trump side wanted. Trump side, yes, as you said in leading into this hot take today, wanted indefinite. I mean, basically, Judge, let's not set any trial date. Even though the Speedy Trial Act requires you under congressional statute to set a trial date, we'd rather not have one. But if you're going to set one, why don't we do it in, how about November? How about when the election has already happened, Your Honor? And the government said December. Because the judge set the original line in the sand. She said, let's try August, which is about 70 days after the indictment, which is Speedy Trial Act period, and let the parties fight out in front of me what should be the appropriate date on a motion for continuance. The federal government jumped in first with a motion for continuance, asking to extend the date to December. The other side said never, and somewhere between never and December, the judge had to make a ruling. She held a hearing on it, and even though she gave the government a lot of grief about December being too early, basically siding with Trump's lawyers that this was a complex case with a shed load, legal term, of documents, information, and video data that needed to be reviewed, and the classified document CIPA procedures overlay that makes it more complex. She also gave the Trump side a lot of grief for suggesting that no jury could ever be picked impartially in Florida or anywhere else to put on a federal trial during the presidential election process, or whatever they called it, which is like now through primaries through election. She didn't buy that argument. And she also gave them a lot of grief and pushback on them suggesting November 2024. So I thought at the midweek Legal AF, which we did with Karen, that she would use, and she'd come up with a date that sandwiched a date that's already on the calendar for a criminal trial of Donald Trump, which is March 25, 2024 case, 3/25/2024, Stormy Daniels, New York prosecution, Manhattan DA prosecution, that's going on March of 2024. I thought she'd either do February or she'd do April. She did May, which is about what I thought she would do. It is 6 months less than Donald Trump's team wanted and 5 months more than the government wanted. So right down the middle. And that's her ruling. Now, she went off in 8 pages. And she also gave a very detailed set of a schedule from now until then to brief everything in the case related to pretrial practice. Let's brief the protective order issue. Let's brief the SEPA issue. Let's do pretrial briefs. Let's do pretrial orders and joint statements. And she really parsed this thing out in fine detail from now until the trial of this case. But she's now hopefully dug in May. And before I leave and turn it back to you, Ben, let's just do the Porter board here, the Popok Porter board of Trump trials. Let me get it into the camera range here. You've got October of 2023 is the New York Attorney General civil fraud case in New York State Court. That's just 3 months away. You've got in January of 2024, the second E. Jean Carroll defamation case, this one for $10 million in punitive damages. 14 days later, in the Southern District of New York as well, before another judge, you've got a class action fraud case brought against Donald Trump and all his kids for a multi-level marketing scheme that went awry. And then 2 months after that, you've got the Stormy Daniels criminal case in New York State Court on the 25th of March, 2024. And then less than 2 months after that, you've got the Mar-a-Lago's crime case in front of Judge Cannon. We haven't even slotted yet Fani Willis's indictment that's coming in the next 3 weeks, nor Jack Smith's second turn at indicting Donald Trump, which we expect either today or early next week.
That looks like a full caseload for any practicing attorney, yet alone to have 5 cases against you like that, back to back, October, 2 in January, 1 in March, 1 in May, and massive cases with very, very significant implications. I see in the comments people saying, and since the news broke just moments ago about this trial date, oh, this is delay. Judge Aileen Cannon's just pushing this back. And I want to be fair. And I tried to say things on Legal AF, even where I think it may upset the Legal AFers. I just want to speak the truth based on our experience, and specifically based on my experience working with some of the top criminal defense lawyers in the country who deal with federal trials all the time. For a case like this, a trial date from indictment to trial in less than 1 year is about as fast as you could possibly go. The August date was never a real trial date. The case was never going to go in 70 days. It simply never happens that way. I thought when Special Counsel Jack Smith requested December, he didn't believe that he would actually get December. He was going to posture and do everything he could to get December, but ultimately, I thought Jack Smith was looking for some compromise between some date in 2025 Trump was going to give and his December date. And this May 2024 date seems to be that kind of compromise date. And again, from an indictment from June of 2023 to a trial date in May of 2024, I think you'll be hard pressed to speak to a white collar criminal defense lawyer or a criminal defense lawyer who handles high profile cases who will tell you there's a case that takes place that quick. And as Popok says, it also seems that Judge Aileen Cannon was very much aware of all of the other trial dates taking place. The October civil lawsuit by New York Attorney General seeking at least $250 million, the class action and the other E. Jean Carroll case, 2 cases in January, the Manhattan District Attorney's case in March of 2024. And then you have this case in May. So you're going to have accountability. And I want to just give you some of the reasons that Judge Aileen Cannon said, look, this needs to be back a little more than in December. Let's push it to May of 2024. And frankly, I think some of those reasons are valid, and I'm not trying to upset you when I say that, but these are reasons that if they were given in any case, a judge would say, that sounds reasonable. One of the reasons is that over 1.1 million documents have already been turned over. And yes, Special Counsel Jack Smith has dummy proofed this in sense of giving like a key and a map to Donald Trump's lawyers of all of like where the key documents are. But whenever you're dealing with the case, if you were to be representing a criminal defendant, you'd always want a trust but verify. Okay, yes, the government's telling me these are the key docs, but I'm going to want people to review all of the records, and reviewing 1.1 million records and perhaps more to come is going to take time. Even if the motions that are going to be filed by Donald Trump border on frivolous, I think we should all agree that anybody accused of any crimes in the United States of America can pursue any of their lawful defenses. I think that if their defenses are unlawful, they should not be able to pursue it. But even Donald Trump, who I think is a criminal and a traitor and someone who's trying to overthrow our democracy in the court of law, ultimately, this case goes before a jury. The jury is going to be the group that makes this decision, and he is permitted to file whatever lawful motions exist. And there are lots of motions under the law that he's entitled to file. I think he's going to lose on all of them, but he's entitled to file. And because this case involves CIPA, the Classified Information Procedures Act, lots of these filings are going to have some complications attendant to it, where a classified information security officer is going to have to handle the documents and file them in certain ways. So to me, if you balance all of those factors, a May 2024 trial date from beginning to end within 1 year of a case, I think is the right decision. The broader concern, though, is that would Judge Aileen Cannon, and this is my broader concern, Popok, now that it's May, does Donald Trump go back in April and say, hey, we haven't been able to go through all these documents. Our trial lawyers are really busy. Now you got to kick it to sometime in 2020, late 2024 or 2025. That's the broader concern to me than this May 2024 trial date itself. Because if the case goes on May 2024, you and I have a big docket of cases, Popok. We have lots of, between us, we probably know lawyers who have between 5,000 and 10,000 cases when you add up our lawyer friends in our immediate circle. Based on all of that, this trial date's a fast trial date. That's my final word. What's yours?
Yeah, I agree with you, and that I'm also share your concern that this is not the last we've heard from Aileen Cannon, setting now kind of the hooks for a future continuance that she can do under the Speedy Trial Act on certain findings. Let me first back up and talk about speed. I agree. We try not to blow smoke or sunshine on legal AF. The date, if it were to hold, is really okay. It's really fine. You're right. And even in my 32-year career, to get a complicated federal trial up and running from indictment to trial date in less than a year is almost unheard of, especially given the complexity of this case or the people that are involved. I mean, 2 years, 3 years is definitely more likely. Bannon, just to put down a little bit of a timeline marker here. Bannon, when he was indicted for just 2 counts of, not complying with a congressional subpoena and being found in contempt, his trial was a year off from that, and that doesn't have this level of complexity. The Department of Justice, yes, has been trying their Jan 6th insurrection cases also at an unheard of speed, but that is an anomaly. That is not usual to try 200 cases in less than a year or just over a year, like the Department of Justice. To use a historical background, the Watergate trials that led from the Nixonian era of fraud and corruption, at the time, the likes we had never seen, but has now been surpassed by Donald Trump. The trials that led to people like his attorney general going to jail, those were 2 and 3 years after the events that happened, not within a year. But I share your concern that under the Speedy Trial Act, all the judge has to do is, after being pinged by Donald Trump's lawyers, is hold another hearing 3 months from now to say, oh, there was a delay and there was another volume of documents and when there's a problem with the SEPA and the security clearances, and now I don't think May works any longer. And all she has to do is put that on the record as a justification to extend further. I mean, there are cases, I don't want to scare people, but there are cases under the Speedy Trial Act where a judge has extended and continued the case from date to date to date for more than 2 years. So, I'm hopeful and that this date holds. She set a very elaborate trial calendar, but those pretrial calendar, but those could also be tripwires if there's any slippage in there, not the fault of the Department of Justice or the other side drags their feet. It gives her the grounds to pop up and, we got to move this another 6 months or another year. So we're cautiously optimistic now about the date and slotting it into the Trump on trial calendar, subject to other trials, right? This is like, I keep using the air traffic controller analogy. There's an air traffic controller in the sky that's trying to get all these planes off the ground. Federal criminal cases and the ones that get filed first and get set for trial first go first. Civil cases go second. Federal goes first over state. And so we're trying to create, even the dates that I listed on the board and you and I talked about on this show, some of the civil cases could get bumped and stayed, meaning they have to run in place for a bit while the criminal cases go forward. So there's going to be some changes to that board that we just did because, I'm not sure the New York Attorney General case is going to go forward in October. Even the Attorney General, Letitia James, has been on and said she might get her case bumped because of where these other cases fall. But if there's clear paths in the calendar for the cases, they should really sit where they are. And Donald Trump is just going to have to go month to month to month to month, civilly and criminally defending himself.
Make sure everybody listens to the new Legal AF. Watch it live right here on YouTube, Saturdays at 5 Pacific, 8 Eastern. Popok and I will have a new Legal AF where we'll talk about this and all of the legal developments of the week. Make sure you subscribe to Legal AF wherever you get audio podcasts. Keep making Legal AF one of the most listened to podcasts and shows on YouTube in the world. Thank you, everybody, for watching. That is your breakdown of the trial date being set by Judge Aileen Cannon. Shout out to the Meidas Mighty.
At MeidasTouch, we are unapologetically pro-democracy, and we demand justice and accountability. That's why we're spreading our message to Convict 45. That's right, gear up right now with your Convict 45 tees and pins at store.meidastouch.com. That's store.meidastouch.com.